If this found you right now, don't scroll. There's a reason you've always felt different, Aries. Like you were never meant to fit neatly into the world you were born into. Like you've been walking forward while everyone else walked in circles. You didn't imagine that pressure. You didn't imagine that fire in your chest. Some people are built to survive systems. Others are built to outgrow them. And this Christmas, something begins to shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. The kind of quiet that changes everything. If you feel it, type, "I trust myself" in the comments. And stay with me, because what's coming next was never meant for everyone. All right, stay with me for a moment. I want you to imagine I'm sitting right across from you right now, not talking to the world, just to you, because what you're feeling in your chest, that quiet recognition, that soft tightening behind the eyes, that's not coincidence. You've lived long enough to know the difference. You've carried a sense of being early to your own life. Like you arrived with instructions the world didn't know how to read yet. So you learned to wait. You learned to observe. You learned to move quietly when others moved loudly. And even when you smiled, part of you stayed alert, watching, listening, sensing where the ground wasn't solid. That's the part of you I'm speaking to now. Because the truth is, people like you don't wake up all at once. You wake up in layers, first through friction, then through loss, then through responsibility that showed up before comfort ever did. And each time life asked more of you than felt fair, you didn't collapse, you adapted. That fire you carry as an Aries, it didn't burn you alive, it tempered you, like steel held in heat just long enough to become something unbreakable. There were seasons you wondered why you had to be the one, why it always felt like you were the first to step forward and the last to be understood. But look back for a second. Every time you thought you were being delayed, you were being refined. Every time you thought you were being overlooked, you were being protected. Some paths don't open early because the weight on the other side would crush someone who hasn't grown into themselves yet. And you grew. Quietly, internally, without applause. That's why this moment feels different. Not dramatic, not explosive, just clear. Like standing at the edge of a shoreline at night, watching the tide pull back, knowing something is about to come in. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to force anything. Your role right now is simply to stay present, to notice how your instincts feel sharper, how your tolerance for false paths is gone, how you no longer argue with your own knowing. That's not you becoming harder, that's you becoming aligned. And alignment is quiet power. It doesn't announce itself. It rearranges your life from the inside out. This Christmas isn't asking you to believe in miracles. It's asking you to believe in timing, in the idea that what you've lived through has not been random suffering, but preparation with intention. And as we move forward from here, the story doesn't suddenly speed up. It deepens. The light doesn't blind you, it reveals. So take this moment with you. Let it settle in your body. Let it soften the places that have been holding tension for too long. Because the next part of this journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally stepping into what's been quietly forming within you all along. Stay with me here. I want to slow this moment down with you, just enough for it to breathe, because you have always known, deep down, that the road you're on was never meant to look crowded. Even as a child, there was something in you that leaned forward when others leaned back. You felt it in the way you questioned rules that everyone else obeyed without thinking, in the way your body reacted before your mind had words. You didn't need proof. You felt truth before it became obvious. That's not defiance. That's instinct. And for someone like you, Aries, instinct is sacred. You were built with an inner compass that doesn't spin wildly. It locks onto direction. Even when the terrain is dark, even when no one else can see what you're sensing, there were times you tried to soften it, tried to be easier, more agreeable, less intense, but the fire didn't leave. It only went quiet, because fire doesn't disappear, it waits. You see, people who are meant to lead don't arrive loud. They arrive observant. They arrive early. They arrive carrying questions that make rooms uncomfortable. And isolation was never a punishment for you. It was the workshop. In solitude, you learned discernment. You learned restraint. You learned when to speak and when to hold power in silence. That's why the world felt slow to you, why conversations felt shallow, why success, as it was presented to you, felt empty. You weren't meant to climb ladders that leaned against the wrong walls. And somewhere along the way, life placed you in moments where you had to choose, compromise your knowing, or stand alone with it. You chose yourself, even when it cost you comfort, even when it cost you belonging. That choice shaped you, not into someone hardened, but into someone clear. Clear enough to see systems that were never built to last. Clear enough to sense when power was being misused. Clear enough to feel the difference between control and leadership. That fire inside you was never about chaos. It was about ignition, about starting something that doesn't exist yet, about walking first so others don't have to stumble blindly behind you. And I know there were nights you wondered if it was worth it, if carrying this much awareness was too heavy, if being different was more burden than gift. But listen closely now. What feels heavy before alignment always feels lighter after truth arrives. That pressure you've lived with was shaping your shoulders, not to carry everyone, but to stand upright when others collapse under confusion. You weren't built to blend in because blending in would have diluted the message you carry. And that message isn't loud, it's steady. It doesn't demand attention. It commands respect over time. And as we continue together from here, you may notice something subtle happening inside you. A loosening, the quiet confidence settling in your chest. Not urgency, not force, readiness, like standing at the edge of a trail at dawn, not rushing forward, but knowing your feet are finally pointed in the right direction. There's more unfolding ahead, not all at once, not in a rush, but step by step, light by light, you're being guided deeper into the reason you've always walked this path differently. And from here, the story doesn't explain itself. It reveals itself, slowly, gently, right on time. All right, come a little closer with me now. This part of the story doesn't shout, it exhales. Because if anyone ever truly saw the weight you carried, they might wonder how you kept going at all. There were seasons when life didn't knock gently for you, Aries. It arrived early, unannounced, already asking for maturity when you were still learning how to rest. Responsibility found you before you asked for it. Decisions landed on your shoulders while others were still being guided. And you learned quietly how to stand steady even when your knees wanted to give way. You probably asked yourself why it felt so intense, why nothing ever seemed light for long, why ease always appeared just out of reach, like something meant for someone else's timeline. But here's the truth I want you to feel, not just hear. That pressure was never a sentence, it was a shaping. You weren't being hardened, you were being expanded. Life kept placing more in your hands because your spirit could hold it, not without strain, not without doubt, but without collapse. That matters, because capacity isn't built in comfort. It's built when you're trusted with weight before you feel ready. And every time you rose to meet it, even imperfectly, even exhausted, you became someone different. Stronger in ways that don't announce themselves, quieter in your confidence, more discerning with where you place your energy. You may not have noticed it at the time, but pressure refined your instincts. You learned how to read a room without speaking, how to sense when something was off, how to protect what matters without becoming closed. That's not toughness, that's wisdom. And wisdom is what allows influence to land safely. You see, not everyone who wants more can handle more. Visibility tests integrity. Responsibility tests humility. Resources test character. So, life introduced you to wait early, so you wouldn't be overwhelmed later. You were trained to move carefully before being asked to move publicly, to listen deeply before being heard widely. That's why you feel different now. Not restless, just aware. Aware that you don't want success that costs your soul. Aware that you're done proving yourself to systems that never saw you clearly. Aware that what's coming next must match who you've become. And you've become someone who understands that power is not loud. It's grounded, it's steady. It knows when to step forward and when to wait without fear. That weight you carried shaped your posture, not to bend you, but to teach you how to stand. And as this story continues, you may notice something softening inside you. A release. Not because the journey is over, but because you no longer resist what it gave you. You're beginning to see how every heavy season quietly prepared you for a wider horizon. One where influence feels natural, where responsibility feels aligned, where resources don't change you, they flow through you. And as we move gently forward from here, you don't need to brace yourself anymore. You've already proven you can carry weight. Now, the story shifts toward how that strength begins to be seen, not as burden, but as quiet authority. And that is where things start to open. All right, let's soften into this moment together, because something has already changed, Aries. Even if you can't explain it yet, even if the outside of your life still looks familiar, inside, the pressure has shifted, not disappeared, shifted. There is a difference between being tested and being prepared, and you're no longer standing in the first place. For a long time, life met you with resistance. Every step forward seemed to ask for proof. Every desire felt like it came with conditions, as if the universe was watching closely, waiting to see whether you would bend or betray yourself. But listen to this carefully. You don't have to prove yourself the same way anymore. You already did. You showed resilience when giving up would have been easier. You showed restraint when reacting would have felt justified. You showed humility while carrying strength that could have hardened you. That combination is rare, and that's why this season feels quieter. Not empty, not dull, just steady. Like the moment after a storm passes when the air feels clean and everything looks sharper. This Christmas doesn't arrive with fireworks for you. It arrives with a knowing, a subtle permission to exhale, because the message moving through your life right now isn't do more, push harder, prove again. It's trust, not the kind of trust that inflates the ego, the kind that settles into your bones, the kind that says you can handle what comes next because you've learned how to carry weight without letting it own you. That's why what's opening now feels aligned, not rushed, not forced. Opportunities may appear quieter than you expected. Conversations that seem simple but change direction. Decisions that feel obvious when once they would have been terrifying. That's alignment. It doesn't scream, it fits. And when something fits, your body recognizes it before your mind celebrates it. You might notice you're less reactive lately, less interested in explaining yourself, less drawn to chaos that once felt familiar. That's not you losing your fire. That's your fire becoming intentional. Because Aries energy, when matured, doesn't burn everything in its path. It lights the way. And now, the trust being placed in you isn't about speed, it's about impact. About how your presence changes rooms, how your choices ripple outward, how your integrity becomes something others feel safe around. This is the kind of preparation that happens quietly because it's meant to last. Nothing is being taken from you in this season. Nothing is being demanded. Things are being arranged, so you don't need to brace yourself anymore. You don't need to stay on edge. You don't need to wonder what lesson is hiding around the corner. The lesson has already been lived. Now, the work becomes subtler, learning how to receive without suspicion, learning how to move forward without urgency, learning how to trust timing without losing momentum. And as we continue from here, the story doesn't suddenly speed up, it deepens again. Because preparation gives way to recognition, and recognition slowly gives way to visibility. Not the kind that exposes you, the kind that reflects you accurately. So, stay present with this feeling, this calm readiness, this quiet confidence settling into your chest. You're not stepping into something random. You're stepping into something that has been waiting for you to become who you already are. And from here, what unfolds next will feel less like a test and more like a natural continuation of everything you've survived, learned, and honored within yourself. All right, let's stay right here for a moment. I want to talk to you the way I would if we were sitting across from each other. Late evening, lights low, no rush to be anywhere else. Because when we talk about abundance for you, Aries, it's never been about wanting more just to prove something. You've never been wired that way. What's being prepared around you now has a very different texture. It feels quieter, cleaner, almost intentional. You've always sensed that money carries a kind of weight, not just numbers, not just status, but responsibility. You felt it early, long before you had much of it. You noticed how power changes people, how it can harden some hearts, how it can pull others away from themselves. And somewhere inside you, a line was drawn. You didn't announce it, you didn't make vows out loud, but you knew. If abundance ever found you, it would have to move through you, not trap you. That's what this preparation is about. Circulation. Like water that keeps a landscape alive because it doesn't cling to one place too long. Like breath that gives life only because it moves in and out. You understand this instinctively. That money is just another form of energy, and energy follows integrity. It flows best through hands that aren't clenched, through hearts that stay grounded even when the world tries to inflate them. That's why your journey hasn't been fast. And it hasn't been flashy. You were learning restraint before being given reach. You were learning empathy before being given influence. Because power without compassion isolates, and abundance without humility corrodes. You were never meant to carry either of those. You're here to interrupt old patterns, not loudly, not aggressively, but by example, by showing that success doesn't have to disconnect people from their humanity, that leadership doesn't require domination, that having more doesn't mean caring less. That's a radical message in a world obsessed with appearances, and it's one you embody quietly. You've seen enough to know that greed is loud but insecure, and true abundance moves calmly because it knows where it belongs. That's why what's forming around you now feels aligned with who you are becoming. Not who you were, not who you had to be to survive, but who you are when you're not defending yourself anymore. There's a steadiness settling into you, a sense that you don't need to chase, you don't need to prove, you don't need to compete. What's meant for you recognizes you, and when it arrives, it won't demand you abandon your values. It will require you to use them. Because the kind of abundance you're stepping toward isn't measured only in what you receive. It's measured in what continues to move because you exist. The people who feel safer around you. The spaces that soften when you enter them. The decisions that ripple outward long after you've made them. That's impact. And that's why this chapter matters. Not because it elevates you above others, but because it allows you to stand firmly within yourself while lifting something larger than you. As we keep moving forward together, you may notice a subtle shift in how you relate to power. Less suspicion, less tension, more clarity. Because when integrity leads, abundance follows naturally. And the story doesn't rush from here. It unfolds, slowly, deliberately. Like a current finding its way back to the ocean, carrying everything it touched with it. And as the next layer reveals itself, you'll begin to see how what moves through you was never meant to stop with you. It was meant to restore balance, and that's where the light grows brighter. All right, let's keep moving gently together, because this is the part many people don't talk about honestly. The moment when growth stops being private. You can feel it already, can't you? That subtle shift in the way the world responds to you. A longer pause in conversations. Eyes lingering a second more than before. People sensing something in you they cannot quite name. As things expand, attention follows. That is simply how fire works. You were never meant to stay hidden, Aries, but being seen is not the same as being understood. And this is where maturity is asked of you in a new way. Some people will feel inspired by your presence. They will feel steadier around you, even if they do not know why. Others will feel unsettled, not because you are doing anything wrong, but because light exposes contrast. That has nothing to do with you, and everything to do with where they are standing. Fire draws eyes because fire changes environments. It warms, it reveals, it transforms what it touches. And not everyone is comfortable with transformation. There may be moments when you feel misunderstood, moments when projections land on you that do not belong to you, assumptions made about your intentions, your confidence, your strength. This is not a sign to dim yourself. It is an invitation to refine how you hold your energy. Visibility is a sharpening stone. It clarifies your voice. It teaches you what is worth responding to and what is not. It shows you where your boundaries truly are, not where you thought they were. You are learning how to be seen without explaining yourself, without shrinking to make others comfortable, without hardening to protect yourself. That balance is rare. There was a time when attention would have felt threatening, when being noticed felt like exposure, when you preferred to work quietly, unnoticed, safe in your inner world. But something has changed. You are no longer hiding to stay safe. You are standing to stay true, and truth carries a gravity of its own. You may notice that you are less reactive now, less interested in defending your choices, less tempted to convince anyone of who you are. That is not arrogance. That is integration. When your inner and outer worlds align, visibility stops feeling like a spotlight. It starts feeling like natural placement, like being exactly where you belong in the room. This phase asks you to trust your discernment, to know when to engage and when to let silence speak for you. To remember that not every misunderstanding requires correction. Some people are not meant to understand you. They are meant to witness what is possible. And Aries, this is part of leadership. Not the loud kind, the grounded kind. Leadership that does not seek attention, but handles it with grace when it arrives. Leadership that does not demand recognition, but carries responsibility with steadiness. You are learning how to occupy space without apology, how to let your presence speak before your words do, how to stay warm without burning yourself out. This visibility is not here to test your ego. It is here to test your alignment, to ask whether you can remain yourself when eyes are on you and expectations begin to form. And you can, because you have already done the harder work. You learned who you are when no one was watching. Now you are learning who you are when you are. So, as this story continues, notice how your relationship with being seen evolves, not into performance, but into quiet authority, the kind that does not rush ahead, the kind that does not look back for approval, just steady movement forward, because what comes next is not about exposure, it is about influence. And influence, when rooted in integrity, does not overwhelm, it settles. And from here, the light does not get harsher, it gets clearer. And that clarity will guide us into the next layer of this journey, where visibility begins to turn into something deeper, something lasting, something that moves beyond you without ever leaving you behind. All right, let's slow everything down right here. Because this moment doesn't rush you, Aries. It meets you. This Christmas isn't asking you to believe in sudden miracles. It's asking you to notice direction, that subtle shift you feel in your body, the way your shoulders sit a little lower, the way your breath goes deeper without effort. That's not coincidence. It's like standing at a crossroads at dawn, not because the signs are loud, but because the air feels different, clearer, charged with possibility. You don't need the full map yet. You never have. What matters is that something inside you has turned, quietly, decisively. A door doesn't swing wide open. It cracks. Just enough light to let you know there is space on the other side. And that realization doesn't land in your thoughts first. It lands in your body, in the way your instincts feel steadier, in the way your fear no longer leads the conversation, in the way your imagination starts to stretch forward again. That's readiness, not excitement, not urgency, readiness. You've lived long enough to recognize when life is pushing and when it's finally moving with you, and this Christmas carries that second energy. Things that once felt blocked begin to respond differently. Conversations soften, decisions feel clearer, resistance loosens its grip, not because everything is resolved, but because alignment has entered the room. You may still have questions. You may still feel cautious. That's wisdom, not doubt. But underneath it all, there's a growing sense that you're no longer swimming upstream, that your effort now creates movement instead of exhaustion. That matters. Because when momentum shifts, it doesn't announce itself. It proves itself over time, in the way plans begin to stick, in the way your energy returns faster after setbacks, in the way hope stops feeling dangerous. For a long time, imagining the future felt risky, like setting yourself up for disappointment. But now, something inside you dares to look forward again, not with fantasy, with grounded optimism, the kind that says, I don't know exactly how this unfolds, but I trust where I'm standing. That trust is new, and it's earned. You earned it by staying present through uncertainty, by continuing to choose integrity when shortcuts were available, by not letting disappointment turn you bitter. That's why this turning point feels gentle, not explosive. It respects the path you walked to get here. This Christmas isn't about a finish line. It's about orientation, your inner compass recalibrating, your energy aligning with opportunities that feel clean, your fire warming instead of burning. And as that happens, you may notice something else. A quiet excitement returning, not loud, not reckless, just alive, like the first hint of sunlight after a long night. You don't celebrate it, you simply feel relieved it's there. This is the kind of shift that invites patience, that asks you to stay open without forcing outcomes, that rewards presence more than planning. You don't need to push the future into place, you need to walk toward it steadily. And as we move forward from here, this story doesn't suddenly resolve, it deepens again. Because once direction changes, the next question isn't where you're going, it's who you're becoming as the path opens beneath your feet. So stay with this feeling, this sense of possibility returning softly to your chest. Something is moving now, with you, not against you. And as the next layer reveals itself, you'll begin to understand that this turning point was never about Christmas alone. It was about you finally standing in a future that no longer feels closed. And from here, the light doesn't rush. It waits for you to step into it at your own pace. All right, Let's stay right here together. There's nothing left to chase in this moment, nothing left to prove. This found you, Aries, because something inside you is ready to move differently now. Not faster, not louder, clearer. You've already lived the version of yourself that pushed through everything with force. The one who survived by sheer will. The one who stayed strong even when no one noticed how tired you were. That chapter did its work. It shaped you. It protected you. But it doesn't need to lead anymore. What's rising now feels quieter, more intentional, like a flame that no longer flickers in the wind because it knows where it's rooted. You're not stepping forward as someone trying to become worthy. You're stepping forward as someone who finally knows they already are. That's the difference. The next version of you doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need to compete for space. It walks into rooms with presence. And presence does the talking. Whatever is being prepared for you now fits who you've become. Not the version of you that reacted, not the version that had to armor up, but the version that knows when to move and when to wait without fear. That's alignment. And alignment feels like ease without laziness, like strength without tension, like confidence that doesn't need to harden into ego. You may notice how your decisions are changing, how you're less interested in forcing outcomes, how you're choosing paths that feel clean, even if they take longer. That's wisdom settling in. The fire you carry hasn't gone anywhere. It's just stopped burning you from the inside. Now it warms. Now it guides. Now it gives you courage without urgency. So, take a breath here. Not the shallow kind, the kind that reaches all the way down. Let it remind you that you're allowed to move forward without dragging the past behind you. That you're allowed to trust what's unfolding even if you can't explain it yet. This season isn't asking you to become someone else. It's asking you to stop holding yourself back out of habit. You don't need to be smaller to be safe. You don't need to be sharper to be respected. You don't need to carry everything alone to prove your strength. Strength looks different now. It looks like discernment. It looks like boundaries that don't require walls. It looks like choosing intention over impulse. And as you step forward from here, you're not walking into the unknown blindly. You're walking into something that has been slowly forming around you, waiting for you to arrive as yourself. Nothing about this is random. Not the timing, not the feeling, not the way this message landed with you instead of passing you by. You've been preparing for this without realizing it, through every choice that honored your integrity. Through every moment you stayed true when it would have been easier not to. So, trust your fire now, not as something that burns everything down, but as something that lights the way ahead. Walk forward with intention, with steadiness, with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they don't need to rush destiny, because this season recognizes you, and you recognize yourself, and that meeting point, that's where the next chapter begins. All right, before you go anywhere, stay with me for just a few more breaths, because if this message reached you tonight, Aries, it didn't come to comfort you only. It came to wake something up. That quiet recognition you felt earlier, that wasn't emotion, that was memory. A reminder of who you've always been before the world taught you to doubt your fire. This season didn't arrive to test you again. It arrived to meet you where you finally stand, clear, grounded, ready. And here's the part that matters most. What's coming next in your life won't need you to chase it. It will respond to the version of you that now moves with intention, with integrity, with calm strength. If this spoke to you, don't brush it off. Drop a comment below and tell me one word you're stepping into right now. Clarity, trust, alignment, courage. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel, not just for predictions, but for this space. A place where Aries don't have to dim their fire to belong, because this journey doesn't end here. In the next message, we go deeper, into what begins to shift once you choose yourself fully, into what opens when you stop waiting for permission. So, trust yourself tonight. Trust what stirred, trust the timing. The path ahead is not random, and neither is the fire that brought you here. I'll see you in the next message. The journey continues,